Today I'm going to be breaking down one of the strongest smash armies you can use here at Townhall 11 to 3-star any base. So here is the army composition that we are going to be using today, and honestly it's pretty simple. Those golems are going to be coming out in front, you've then got the bowlers and the witches coming in behind. It's incredibly simple. When it comes to your spells, you're going to be going pretty heavy here on the heal spells, trying to just maintain the health of those troops as they progress through the base. A couple of other spells in there, of course, just to support. When it comes to your siege of choice, down here at Town Hall 11, it's really important to pick the correct siege machine for your clan castle because, of course, you can only bring one. So we're opting to bring in the log launcher. Coming out of that is going to be some Valkyries. Then moving over to our heroes, we have the absolute most basic pieces of equipment for our heroes, but I will leave it completely up to you. My recommendation typically is to bring whatever pieces of equipment you have maxed out for your heroes, but of course it's totally personal preference. So jumping straight into the first attack, what we're going to be doing is probably going opposite Town Hall side. This is because we want to get maximum value from that log launcher. We don't want to put it straight in so it can just like deactivate straight away on the side, because if you didn't know, the log launcher of course does lock on to wherever the town hall is. So if you start it from over this side, which we're going to, it's going to make a beeline right across the map all the way to the town hall. So we're going to get a nice spread on our troops here, starting with those golems nice and spread out. A couple of ice golems on the further side as well. Then you're just going to go ahead and basically spam everything in bowlers, and witches are going to be coming in behind those golems, just trying to let them tank for those troops as long as possible. Once you've deployed down all of those, we're going to be making sure we get a couple of wall breakers in. Those wall breakers, of course, to get into the initial portion of the base. You can then go ahead and bring in that log launcher in behind. Now, if you don't manage to get those golems out in front, what is going to happen is exactly what's happening over here. Your troops are just going to get picked off by the defenses because they have nothing to support them. King's ability going to get popped off right there. Honestly, the Earthquake Boots are always a pretty good shout for the Barbarian King when you're using these kind of smash based attacks. Because of all the ground troops in there, you want to try and keep all the wall sections open if at all possible. But sometimes things don't quite go to plan. You might not have that piece of equipment fully upgraded, or you might just be coming in with whatever you think is going to work better, and that is where the jump spell is going to be really beneficial on the back end. Of course, try and make sure you're using those spells as and when you need to. The only issue I ever find with this attack is because you spread out your troops so much at the start, it's really difficult to decide where to use those rages and when to use those heal spells, because you don't want to heal too small a group, but you also want to make sure you're using that heal somewhere. You don't want to end up kind of swagging it on the back end. So we'll jump into the next example and we'll break it down a little more. So we have the double multi-target inferno on this base, which typically you don't want to be going in with a smash based army like something with witches, because multi-target infernos are 9 times out of 10 going to eat these armies up, but you can still do it. It can still be effective, but it's maybe not quite as powerful as going into a base that has single target infernos. What you're going to need to do here is just be super careful that you try to protect your troops if they do get locked onto by those multi-target infernos. Using a nice early Eternal Tome ability is definitely going to help us out a little bit here, allowing those troops to progress through. Using that rage spell nice and early on is going to allow us to get some really nice bounce value over multiple wall sections and getting into some of those heavier defenses. Using that first heal spell there, we probably could have placed it slightly better. Unfortunately for us here, all of our troops over towards this left hand side have not been able to get any value. They've died, like I said, to that multi-target inferno. The multi on the other side is still surviving as well, so this is exactly what I'm talking about. They are really problematic if you leave them unchecked. So that's why we're going to be using the freeze spells, just trying to protect our troops for a little bit, allowing them to get through the multi-target inferno, and then they can start progressing through some of these defenses on the back end. Luckily for us here, the queen did have her ability still to pop in the core of the base, so she's going to be able to get in there and pick up some really nice value. This one potentially slightly closer than we were looking for, but it just shows you can use this strategy against multis, but it is going to be slightly more difficult. You're definitely going to need to be careful with your hero abilities as well as with your spell placement. If you would like to pick up the link for this army, it is as always down in the description below. While you're down there, feel free to check out our newest partners, Phoenix Rising, who have clans for all of the lore town halls. You can go ahead and join their Discord if this is something that does interest you. But we have one more example, so let's jump in and we'll break it down. So for that third and final example, again, we're going to be coming in against the double multi-target Inferno, and this type of base is really difficult to attack because, like I said, typically when you're coming in with one of these CGs that's going opposite Town Hall side, you're probably going to want to try and deal with the multi-target Infernos pretty early on. However, on this particular base, the multi-target Infernos are actually kind of behind the Town Hall, so this means a lot of our troops are going to be staying alive for a good portion of the attack all the way through into the core, but we're then going to have to deal with the double multi-target Inferno as we progress through the back end. So of course we're going to want to try and save some of those spells just for a little bit longer than typical, so we can use the heal spells to get us through the multi-target Infernos on the back end. When it comes to funneling with this strategy, typically when you drop down your Golems, you're going to use a couple of bowlers and a couple of witches on the corners or on the edges of your attack. You're then going to use the rest of the troops kind of to push through into the core. However, sometimes things still aren't going to go to plan. Like you guys can see right here, we only really ended up getting one Golem and our Queen actually pushing into the core. So not ideal, but we are still going to be able to get some value. Those Valkyries that did end up coming out of our log launcher, really picking up some very nice value indeed. They're going to be able to break through some of these defenses and wall sections for us here on the back end. Unfortunately, all the skeletons and witches did end up going down towards this top section of the base, but luckily for us here, we do still have the freeze spell as well as a rage spell and our king's ability left in hand here. So this one is going to finish up with that 3-star. But like I said, if you do come across multi-target Infernos and you're maybe not quite as comfortable coming in with this strategy because it's slightly more risky coming in, you can always go ahead and check out some of my other Town Hall 11 videos. I have loads and loads of them, loads of strategy guys, all with the army links in the descriptions. So if you don't think this one's potentially for you, you can go ahead and check out some of those other videos to give you guides on how to deal with multi-target Infernos for particular styles of attacks, as well as dealing with single target Infernos. But hopefully you guys did find this video helpful and hopefully you enjoy using this strategy.